All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Thursday Night Book Club. I love that we can just get in our PJs and talk about, what's going on and what we're getting from all these fun things. It's just one of my favorite meetings because they're so like casual. So we're going through the 4 color personalities of MLM, and I got Leah with me. We're leading together tonight. So we talked about red and green personalities tonight. And Leah and I were talking earlier on who wanted to talk on what, and I was like, I don't have any green in me at all. And she's like, well, I've got a good amount of green in me, so go ahead and cover red, because we're both red, so that's kind of funny. But so reds, let's talk about reds for a second. Reds love to be in the spotlight, so let's talk about reds. I'm sure all the reds like, talk about me tonight, so let's talk about it. So reds, they like to be in charge. They like to be the ones that are leading everything. They like to be the one, they're super competitive. They're your money people. They're the one that you're going to talk to about, the contest and being at the top of the leaderboard and going after, being on the company leaderboard every week, and all the prizes they can earn and basically everything they can snatch up in the process. And here's the funny thing about reds is I think they tend to get this like bad rap of like being somebody who's like, will, devour anybody in their path to get to where they're going. But I think red's the key here. If you are red, the key here is you've got to dig into strong leadership skills, because it is easy to start to devour people in your path to success if you don't have a mindset of strong leadership. So that's something you're going to want to, that's something I know I've had to really dig into as a red, is, and being others focused and not just me focused, helping others to hit their goals, not just focused on me hitting my goals. It's a learning curve a little bit, but it is something that can be learned and skills that can be developed. And you do get to a spot to where you understand that a lot of this is a team effort and we all work as a team together. So make sure, like I said, if you are red, that you're digging into some strong leadership. For reds, they are not, what are reds not? Reds are not ones that are going to care much about how the products help others, right? Those are the yellows. We talked about those last week. Reds are not somebody that cares about the information that much. I always giggle. I can always tell the difference between a red and a green when we're getting started with the business. And it's like, okay, well, I need to know a little bit about the compensation plan. Okay. And then what does that mean that I have to, what are the points? I don't understand the points. I generally know I'm starting to talk to a green. But if you're talking to a red, they're like, cool, what do you do to get to the first rank? 3 people? Got it. I'll be right back. They get their 3 people. What's next? And they, even if they don't come in that strong, because I know when I started, I don't want to say accidentally got 3 people, because that sounds so weird and cliche, but like I just started sharing and I found 3 people, and I was on the team page and I saw people were talking about people going silver, and it was 3 people. And I was like, I think I just went silver. And so I was like, cool, I hit the first rank. I was like, what's the next rank? How many people is that? Okay, well, I'll be right back. And went and got those, because that, to me, that was winning. And I love that feeling of like winning. And as a red, I would challenge you to like, find out what that's validating inside of you, that feeling of winning and competing, and like, what is that validating inside of you? Because there are going to be times where you're not winning, and there are going to be times that you're not on the leaderboard, and there are going to be times that you don't hit the rank. There are going to be times that, you've got a rough season and your points are backwards or whatever. And as a red, that can really destroy you, honestly, if you don't find out what is that validating inside of you, and finding ways to validate yourself outside of success, whatever success, what success looks like to you. Find ways to validate yourself and keep yourself motivated outside of that, because you can really destroy yourself as a red if you don't have that internal motivation as well. So Leah, any thoughts on the red that you want to jump into?
The only other thing I was thinking about, I think you covered a lot of good stuff, is like you need to be really conscious of personal growth. And like I am a red, but it was interesting because I had yellow and green were almost tied and a lot higher than the last time that I took this test. And I just was watching an old training that Fallon did on the color personalities, and she was talking about how if you feel like you're pretty even, that means you must have done personal growth along the way and you've grown into that and you see other perspectives. Because a lot of this, like what he was talking about at the beginning, is like, can you speak Portuguese? I think is what he said. Like there's different languages for different people, right? And so if you're going to be a leader, you're going to be leading other people, and it's good to have that perspective, and it's good to grow and just, yeah, understand people more. So um really hone in on that so that you're not trampling on people, I think is a big deal, and loving people. So yeah, that's kind of all I had. Did you have anything else, or do you want me to go?
I could talk all night on it, but I'm gonna let you I'm gonna let you go so we can open it up too.
Okay.
I know with color personalities, some people love to talk about themselves. So I'm like, we're gonna get a lot of commentary.
Yes, yes, yes. So for green, green is my second highest, and greens love information. So if someone is asking you a lot of questions, or questions that maybe no one else would ask you, you're like, I've never had somebody ask me that question before. That could be a green. Greens, he talked about, and this book just kills me when I read it, but he's like, greens are boring. They don't have a great personality. They're really comfortable with books and computers, but maybe uncomfortable with humans. And um, a lot of times they can be slow to make decisions because they feel like they need to know all of the information and be super well informed first. And so, but once they make a decision, they are great people to have on your team because they're lifers, whether it's for customers or if it's a business builder, they're somebody that's going to be loyal, and they will be your friend for life, and they're trustworthy. Definitely planners, organize, that sort of thing, and not the center of attention. I was dying as I'm like reading these chapters because I'm like, I'm red, but I'm also very green. And I'm thinking back to the cruise, and Natalie and I are leading, and Natalie is over on the deck of the cruise leading a dance off. And I'm like over in the corner, like, oh my word, like if I was up there, I would die right now. Like, and he like flat out says, like, greens do not dance. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling my green right now. So it's good. We're all the body of Christ, and we need everybody, and everybody has their gifts, and we need greens. So if you need an answer, a green is a great person to go to. So how to spot a green, just a couple of things I was thinking about, how to spot a green, like when you're talking to people, if they're asking you a million questions, they're probably a green, because they're thinking everything so thoroughly, right? And I think the other thing I was thinking about in my conversations, I think a lot of times greens can be on the quiet side. Like, yes, they like to ask a lot of questions because they need to know details, but if they're not sure, they might be kind of reserved and pulled back. So it might be good for you to make sure that you're asking them a lot of questions, and saying things like, you know, what questions do you have for me? Or even like maybe if you're inviting them to an event, if you join us in this messenger event or whatever it is, I'm sure you're going to get some of your answers to your questions. Or something like, you know, just out of curiosity, what specifically do you need some time to think about? Because they probably are gonna be like, I just need some time to think. Okay, like dig into that and see if you can figure that out, or think out loud for me, things like that. So you can keep them talking, because they do have questions. And anytime somebody brings you an objection, greens probably will have a lot of objections. If they're bringing you a lot of questions or a lot of objections, that's a good thing. That means that you can give them the information that they need to move forward, because they need a lot of info to move forward. So these are the people, when you're talking to them, they need the nitty gritty details. So these would be the people that you should send the long Jessica Hugendorn videos to. Or like Susie Bailey did a really good call on like the breakdown of every ingredient in the triplex. I've sent that to a couple people recently, but you need to know that they're green. You shouldn't just send a 60-minute video to somebody who is not a green. A blue will not watch it. I've added a lot of greens into Gut Health and Happiness, and I will tell them, I can tell that you like research and you like detail. So I'm going to add you into this page that we have. It's got a ton of information and testimonies and whatever. So use that magnifying glass up at the top and search any keywords that you want to know anything about. And I see them like on the page, like commenting, or they come back and they ask me about, you know, testimonies, because they want to dig in and research too. He mentioned in the book, like if you're inviting them to an opportunity event, You can just say like, hey, let's sit in the back of this room, we'll take a bunch of notes, I'd love to hear your insight afterwards, type something kind of along those lines. Whereas with the red, it's more like, hey, we're going to make a lot of money, like this is huge, let's do this. And then another way I was thinking, like being able to spot them or identify them, notice people's posting, and that probably will help you identify like if somebody's blue or whatever too. What kind of things are they posting about? If they're posting sciencey articles or documentaries or books that they're reading, personal growth stuff, I mean, anybody can post those things, but it could be a green, most likely. So, and then just to wrap up here, a couple things that you might need to look out for or maybe overcome if you are a green. Don't be so detail oriented with people unless you for sure are talking to another green. Then you guys can nerd out together, but do not dump every single fact about ingredients on them. Like if you are talking to somebody in person, facts tell, stories sell. So you might love all the facts, but just share a short blip about, what Plexus has done for you. Like when you're connecting in person or, whatever, just share short testimonies. It doesn't have to be every detail of every ingredient. Watch out for being opinionated. Not that greens are not coachable, because I believe anybody can be coachable. It's a choice. But I think sometimes it might take you time to buy into maybe what your leader is recommending. And if you are maybe stuck in your business or not seeing results that you want to see, you might stay there for a while if you're not willing to step forward even before having it all figured out. So keep that in mind. I think a lot of times it's good to look out for like knowing that you don't like to change ideas, or you're like super methodical, or you don't like just change in general. So like last week, I think Canada and I were joking in the comments, she likes to do all new messenger events. Like I could do the same messenger event every single time and I don't care. She's like, I like new events because she's a blue. I think, it's not bad to be methodical and have a system for things, but it's good to pivot if you see like a format isn't working or something. Be open to change and don't be paralyzed or overthink and not get into action right away. In the book, they were talking about how greens are not necessarily quick starters. But I just wanted to like close with this and kind of remind you guys, don't make excuse for whatever your color is. Don't make excuses with that. Be mindful of what your downfalls can be potentially. And I'm just here to remind you, whether you're green or not, you have ability to take action right away. And I think like last week when he was talking about the blues and the yellows, maybe this is the red coming out saying that you can take action. But like last week he was kind of talking about the blues and yellows, and he was like almost describing you guys space cadet-y in a way, which I know he's like super, sarcastic with how and exaggerated with how he's saying things. But you're not. You have the ability to take charge too and take action and lead well, no matter your color. You can be a great leader, and there is a diamond that is every single color, so you can be successful despite all of it. So, and then the last thing I was going to say about greens, I think you can grow your businesses really well on social media, because you're probably somebody who wants to be able to think about what you're going to say before you say it. And so you can hide behind your computer screen and think about it and then type it out. And that's okay. Like it's good to grow on social media, but don't let yourself stay there. Don't hide behind the computer screen. Still get out in person, still talk to people at the grocery store, push yourself, because you can grow in that too. So let's open it up for discussion. I'd love to hear on either of those colors.
So for me, I really liked how going through each of the colors, which I showed you my thing, I'm like almost the same on all of them. I really liked that I'm like, oh yeah, those are like areas in my business where I'm doing really great. But then in each color, but then I also would see things like what you were just saying about green, like you're constantly like, Justina, you don't have to tell them every part of everything at the same time. And so it's funny because I also feel like I had a lot of reflection of the areas where I can grow too. And I think I'm getting better at catching myself, but sometimes I think we're probably more or less of one color, even depending on the day or like what's going on, And so I'm getting better at catching myself and being like, okay, what does this person need more so than like, what do I think I would want, And so I think that that's been really eye-opening for me. And so it's kind of been cool just recently in my coaching of people to stop and be like, okay, what color probably are they? And so what's the best way to say this, or what's the best, so I've been really liking that.
It's good to have that reflection on how you're talking to people, and just because I want to know this, do they want to know this? I think that's good to have that. I was listening to a sales coach the other day talking, and they were talking about how if you are, and it made me think of the greens, if you're talking to somebody and you're giving them all the logical information, if you're talking to somebody who doesn't care about information, the main logical thing that people have in their brains is their money. So if you start talking logical information to them, they're going to automatically go to money, and they're going to start talking about how they can't afford it and trying to budget and all that in their head. They're going to automatically go there. So you start getting too logical, you're going to get them thinking logic. That sounds horribly to say that way, but you know what I mean? They're going to start thinking logically in their own way, which usually is tied to their money. So that's good to be aware of.
Well, I'll share a couple of things that came to mind. So I definitely have a little green in me because when you know how they have like, oh, I don't know if you guys remember, but maybe there still is, but there was a full compensation plan and a compensation summary. The full one was crazy detailed, very long. And I know people who like never wanted to read it, didn't read it, could care less. And it's not that I needed to know the nitty gritties, but it was more so I like read it all because I was curious about if I could actually be successful with this, So that was like the whole eye opener to me of like the Power 3 because the way they had it spelled out. Anyway, loved that full thing. I read the whole thing. So I need the details, but anyway, that's beside the point. My comments and my thoughts on this were a lot of times just with working with a lot of people and helping people share. And when they're talking to their new people, right? One thing I've seen a lot is, and something to watch out for when you're connecting with a green. And if you are not a green, sometimes I think people can be kind of be quicker to discard the greens or to think that they're not interested or they're just maybe even a little more negative or just, aren't ready. They need all this information, especially if you don't relate to that, right? If you're like a blue or if you're someone who's like, oh, this is not worth the time. Like they're not, they're never going to get there. Or they're not, I don't know. You kind of assume things differently. So I think that's why this book is so powerful because it helps you like, if you're consciously stopping in your tracks and thinking, okay, like to me, I feel like this is portraying that they're not that they're not interested because they're asking you questions, but they're whatever, difficult or, whatever, but that's your perception versus if you're trying to get into their shoes and where they're coming from, that's just maybe what's important to them or how they connect or how they relate or how they see the world or whatever. So being able to stop and actually see things from people's perspective on a different way. And this just breaks it down so easy to be able to have kind of some tools with that. Right. And on the other side with reds, a lot of times, we thrive in this business with duplicating, right? We got systems to duplicate. We link arms, we do it together. It's fun. It's important. But sometimes, you might have people that come in that are very strong red and they want to be more independent or they want to do some new fun things and whatever. And as long as it's not like crazy detrimental going out of left field, like it's okay to not need to have all your ducks in a row and have your hands over everything with everybody because sometimes that's when they flourish and we need to give people more reins. And so just with coaching people and working with different people, like not feeling like, that's a bad thing. That's a really, really good thing when people are independent and want to run and all the things. So just knowing that you're going to work with so many different kinds of people in this business and whether you're in one spot or another, everyone has so much to offer from where they're coming from. And that's what makes us so good all together.
I think on that note, with like knowing that we're gonna be working with all of them, is also realizing what your business might be lacking in that area. You know, like I've I had a light bulb go off a couple weeks ago. I had somebody that was like, I've got all these people on my team and they're just like getting ready to get ready and they're gathering all this and nobody's moving. And I'm like, what are you putting out there that all you're attracting is greens? Like, you need to put something out there where you start to attract those reds and those blue, you know, the people that aren't going to ask questions and are going to just go. You need to learn how to market to those people too. Not just, so usually it's a green that's marketing greens, or like the other, you know, someone else is like, I can't get anybody to go to these events. Like they're earning these events, but no one's going to them. Everyone's staying home. I'm like, okay, so what are you doing that you're not marketing to blues? You know, like you're lacking blues in your organization, and you need a little bit of all these people because I think they all inspire and ignite each other too. So be aware of what your organization might be lacking and start marketing more to those colors as well.
A really good point. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Okay, I have to be honest. This was the first time I've looked at this that I've even did the test. Because I'm the kind of person that it's hard for me to sit down and do these little things. When I get tons of questions asked, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. All these questions. But it has helped me realize that learning what other people are, seeing the difference and knowing where to place them is helping me understand how to train them, how to lead them. And being led by a green has been huge in letting me I see your eyeballs, Leah. Being able to identify this stuff. And I was really surprised at, I mean, not really surprised, but somewhat surprised on some of the stuff where I ended up on mine. But it was more spot on than I thought it was, if you know, just to say. But it has really helped me, and I will be continuing to study these guys because then I will know how to talk to somebody, how to lead them, know what to send them and what not to send them. And that should help with just reaching out to people and how to respond to them. So yay for me actually accomplishing one thing out of this book.
And I was kind of thinking through, like, with posting, and we've talked about this a little bit, just how important it is to, in our posting, like hit those different color personalities so that, like, because if I love information and I love to know what's in the product and why it works and why it's so effective, but that completely bores somebody else and they want to just know that Plexus has a party going on next weekend, or like how they can earn income for their family, to just really like think through that when I'm posting, to like look at some of those key things about different color personalities and what draws them in, and not just always post to like what my personality is. Because what I find interesting, someone else might find very boring. So it's a good reminder to kind of like hit in those different categories of different parts of Plexus that would draw somebody in.
And as a leader, it's super helpful to be mindful of those things when helping coach your people too. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been able to talk with kind of level ones and kind of talking through different things. And I'm like, I think you need to start posting in the red zone. I think you need to start posting in the yellow zone. Like, I can use that phrase, and my level ones they understand what I mean when I say that too. And they get, okay, I've been too much over here. I need to shift and pivot X, Y, and Z. So.
Good, y'all.
And I also want to say that it's totally okay to be doing this business for a fair amount of time and think that you are solely one color, only to find out when your leaders are like, "You're a green, aren't you?" And I'm like, "I am." And then I go like dig into it a little bit further and I'm like, the shoe fits so well. Oh my gosh, I've only ever thought of myself as a red. How did I not know I was multicolored? And then to add to it, then as Jamie was talking about reading through the comp plan, I'm like, well, of course you read through the comp plan. And then I think about how people on my team come to me and ask me for X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's in the fine print down in the yada yada area. And I'm like, didn't you read like the little like fine print down at the bottom that tells you like exactly what you need to know or where to find it or blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. I've been so oblivious. Anyways, it was total light bulb moment, Em.
It's hilarious. Now, don't mistake that always, because us Reds read that fine print too. Ask my upline. I'm the queen of looking at the fine print because I want to know exactly what this contest entails, so I know exactly what I'm going to do to sweep it really fast.
Yes. Okay. So maybe it's the red and green coming out in me. But yes, I'm like, of course you read all of the nitty gritty details. We need to know how to win. We need to know what to do. And we need to follow the rules if we're a one. Yes.
What's fine print? Canada says.
So I was just gonna share a little something that I noticed about myself in all of this because I took like the test like 3 times just to be sure because I wanted to see, but I'm literally like a point or two away from each other with red, yellow, and green, and then blue is like way down there. But I think if I would have taken and answered those questions like even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it would have been even different. And I feel like the more I was laughing as I was reading the red for tonight because I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of there. And, I've had like the whole thoughts about, like, oh, they're so whiny. It just made me laugh. But I think that my yellow is so high up there now. And I think honestly that just really has to do with personal growth and God. Because I don't think, like, if I would have taken this test like several years ago, I'm not sure the yellow would have been right up there with the red and the green. But it is. And so I think there's like a difference in like when you're growing, like I've learned over the years to care more about people than the project. Because I think reds have a tendency to like they're like focused on everything else and sometimes they forget about the people and the people's needs and the people's emotions and the people, all of that. And so that's something that I've had to grow in. And so it just really pointed out to me how far I've come, I guess, and how much God has grown me in that area to be so high on yellow because I never would have saw myself as yellow years ago. Or have it like I thought it would have been way down there with the blue, but it's not. It's like right up there, and it's just kind of interesting to see that. So I just wanted to point that out. Sometimes I think when you're starting to even out in those areas, I think it's because God has taken you through places and things in your life that make those changes and you grow in that area, even if it wasn't your primary color before.
Yeah. Anyone ever get slightly offended when it's not the color you thought you were? I know I do.
Just the reds. Just the reds.
Probably do not call me green or yellow.
I had one other thing from my notes that I was gonna share and I forgot, but does anybody else have anything? We're at 10 o'clock already. I'll give you a chance, otherwise I had a light bulb since I'm red and green. Anybody? The thing that I was thinking about with reds and greens, like I was reminded of this when Candace was talking about like reading the fine print, like you know all of the details. Reds know a lot of details because they like to take charge of the conversation. And so I think both of these color personalities can tend to use their own voice a lot when prospecting. And that's something that I definitely did early on in my business. And I found that my leaders were not able to duplicate because I would just go into a three-way chat and I would rattle off everything that I know about why it's important to balance your blood sugar, you know, instead of sending the video or whatever. And so if you're a red or green, I think it's really, really important for the sake of empowering everyone on your team and duplication, make sure you're using tools like as often as possible. Use tools. Rein it in, Justina. Justina is like the queen of all fun facts too. Use those tools because then that blue is not going to be like, I cannot do this business. I don't know any of that because I'm Canada and I did not read the fine print, right? Like that's okay. That's who Canada is, but she's great at gathering people, you know? So it's like anybody, no matter what their strengths are, they can duplicate our simple systems if you're using tools. So I think that's one thing that reds and greens need to be really mindful of. So that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything? All right.
We're good.
Thanks, ladies. We will see you next week.
Thanks, y'all.